Yeah. Hello, nerds. Nerds for humanity. It's time for Nerd Nightly News with special guest, Nerdling for humanity. What's going on, Brandon?
All good.
All right, there's a backstory to this Nerd Nightly News. As you may tell, I'm a little under the weather and had a runny nose. Didn't really want to do this live stream, but on a whim, I just posted on Twitter saying like, hey, if you guys want to do Nerd Nightly News, if this thing gets 15 likes, I'll do it. And then I checked at like 5 minutes before the deadline and it had 14 likes. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take some NyQuil and crash. And then like a minute or two before deadline, it got to like 15 likes. So here we are. Today's stories from across the political spectrum. We're going to start with Donald Trump being disqualified from the Maine Republican primary, and that's going to be from the perspective of Fox News. Then we're going to have New York Times on Israel expresses regret for harm to civilians. Then we'll have Wall Street Journal on Nikki Haley, Civil War, top discussion about slavery. Then CNN on Ukraine's hope for victory fades in the face of waning Western support and Putin's relentless war machine. Then I'm going to thank our channel members. So if you have been thinking about becoming a member, just click that join button on YouTube and you'll be shouted out. And then after the shout outs, we're going to do bonus story because someone on Twitter asked me, hey, can you talk a little bit more about how RFK Jr. is doing? So we'll look at some recent polls that look at that. So let's get on to the news. We're going to start with Trump being disqualified from the Maine primary as told by Fox News. And this is from their homepage. It's their top story. Maine Secretary of State removes Trump from Republican primary ballot. Okay. What does it say? I hope it doesn't autoplay. Maine's Democratic Secretary of State on Thursday disqualified former President Trump from the state's presidential
At the
primary
University
ballot.
of Wyoming, the spirit of innovation and boundless curiosity fuel our
Fox
hunger
News,
for knowledge.
stop. Like, seriously? We're in 2023 and you guys autoplay ads. Like, another reason why I don't normally go to Fox News, but whatever. Maine's Democratic, not grumpy at all, am I, Brandon?
No.
Maine's Democratic Secretary of State on Thursday disqualified former President Trump from the state's presidential primary ballot. In her ruling, Secretary of State Shenna Bellows cited Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which bans from office those who engage in insurrection. Bellows made the ruling after some state residents, including a bipartisan group of former lawmakers, challenged Trump's position on the ballot.
So it's basically like a naughty or nice list. If you've done some bad stuff, you don't get to be on the ballot.
Two things. One, you're not in the frame.
Oh.
Okay. Two, kind of. But basically, what the Constitution says is that if you actively try to subvert the government, you shouldn't be eligible to be elected.
So like raid the Capitol?
Like that.
Oh.
Or, try and overturn an election that you lost, knowing that it was not true.
Fool.
Well, okay, let's stay positive because we are on a public live stream.
That is true.
What I think you mean is that you believe that what he did was not wise.
Yeah.
And you disagree with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we should be clear that I think a lot of people kind of were misled by him. And they really thought they were trying to save the country because he told them like, oh my God, the Democrats are trying to steal this election. So Any rate, now that we know that they've lost 60 of 61 court cases, including many presided over by Trump's own appointed judges, I think the state of Maine is saying, like, look, he definitely engaged in an insurrection. Trump's lawyers requested that Bellows disqualify herself over tweets that they believe showed bias. In the tweets, Bellows, a lawyer and former ED of the ACLU, called the U.S. Capitol attack an insurrection and bemoaned that Trump wasn't convicted by the Senate after being impeached by the House. So there he is. We won't read the whole story, but that's our first news story from Fox. Next story is going to be from New York Times on Israel expressing regret for casualties in Gaza. So let's take a look at that. Israel military said it is working to draw lessons from an attack in central Gaza that was reported to have killed dozens of people. Oh, my God. The Israeli military said on Thursday that it had caused unintended harm to uninvolved civilians in two strikes this week on a densely packed Gaza Strip neighborhood where the local health authorities said dozens were killed. It was a rare admission of fault by the military over its conduct of the war. The military said it was targeting Hamas on Sunday when it launched two strikes on the central Gazan community of Al-Maghazi, which has been flooded with Palestinians uprooted by war and crammed into homes by the dozen. Quote, a preliminary investigation revealed that additional buildings located near the targets were also hit during the strikes, which likely caused unintended harm to additional uninvolved civilians, the IDF said in a statement. The IDF regrets the harm to uninvolved individuals and is working to draw lessons from the incident. So that's the New York Times about, which I think the most noteworthy thing here is that this is the first time that the IDF is kind of expressing any, a little bit more regret for their kind of tactics. It's a long discussion, so we're just going to go into the news. Next is Nikki Haley talking about the Civil War. Hey, Brandon, have you learned about the Civil War? You're in 8th grade.
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay, well then you might find this interesting.
The one that was like the Patriots and the Loyalists, right?
No, that's the Revolutionary War. Civil War is the North and the South.
Oh. When did that happen?
Like 1860s, somewhere around there.
Okay. I don't think we've got to that yet.
Okay, well you're going to learn something here now. Nikki, so this is on the Wall Street Journal, again, in our practice of, we started with super conservative Fox News, then we went to left-leaning New York Times, now we're back to conservative Wall Street Journal. Nikki Haley says, of course Civil War was about slavery, following criticism. Let's watch what everybody's talking about.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question, right? I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I wanted to see your view on the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are. And I will always stand by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. Government doesn't need to tell you how to live your life. They don't need to.
Okay, so I'm curious, Brandon, what do you think of her answer?
Well, I think she did give like a very straightforward answer, but she did kind of ask him what he thought about it. And I'm not sure if that's like, well, what I'm trying to say is I don't know if that's like, I wouldn't ask the person asking me the same question, because it kind of looks like you don't really know and you're not really confident about your answer.
So I'll tell you what's interesting about this is that most people are taught that the primary cause of the Civil War was a battle between the North and the South over the South's desire to continue with the practice of slavery.
Yeah.
She did not mention that. She said, well, it's about government telling you what you can and can't do. And I suppose maybe that's kind of true. It's like, yeah, well, it's about a war over government saying that you can't own other human beings as property. What's tricky for her is she is running for president in the Republican primary, and she also comes from a southern state, which lost the Civil War, and
So-
where there's a lot of people who probably some still have strong feelings about it. So it's a tricky question for her. So I kind of give her a little bit of grace, like, wow, like how if she says, oh, it's about slavery and how it should have been abolished and it was, America's original sin, she basically is going to risk pissing off a lot of people in the Republican primary, including in the South Carolina primary, which is coming up. If she says, well, it's about government telling what you can and can't do, then people are going to be like, what are you talking about? Are you denying that slavery was a big part of it?
To tell you what you can and can't do. They don't need to be a part of your life. They need to make sure that you have freedom. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that
See this guy here?
He does not.
He's like, aren't you going to say anything about slavery? I don't know what he's thinking.
we do all things so that individuals
When's she going to talk about slavery?
have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the
I
way.
don't remember.
And in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Look at that.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
No, you've answered my question. Thank you.
Oh,
Next question.
Woo!
leaving it out on her.
Okay, so what does the Wall Street Journal say about this? So that was what caused the brouhaha. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley said Thursday that Civil War was caused by a fight over slavery, as she tried to tamp down a political uproar hours after she failed to mention it when asked about the conflict's origins. Of course, the Civil War was about slavery. We know that. That's the easy part of it. She said on a Pulse of New Hampshire radio show, I'm from the South. Of course, you know it's about slavery. The earlier omission of slavery by the former South Carolina governor at an event on Wednesday evening was particularly notable given the legacy of the Civil War and race relations have been a constant in her decades-long political career. The high-profile incident in the early primary state of New Hampshire came as Haley is trying to stake her claim as the top challenger to Donald Trump in a GOP primary race the former president has dominated so far. It has drawn criticism from Republicans and Democrats, calling it not an easy question. Haley said the cause was basically how government was going to run the freedoms of people, what people could and couldn't do. All right, so that's the Wall Street Journal. Let's now, we have a chat.
Put it up on.
All right, we'll put it up. Whatever is clever. Slavery didn't come into the conversation until the North thought they were losing. Lincoln used it as a morale booster. You see how there's different opinions on this one. Yeah, that is an opinion. I'm pretty sure the states that were in the Confederacy all consistently wanted to retain the right to have slaves, and the states that were in the North all were in favor of abolition. But we can double check that. I think whatever is clever is making the argument, yes, that was one of many arguments for the war. There were other arguments around maybe like federal power or the influence of the North over the South or allowing the South to run the economy the way it wanted to, all those arguments. That's fair. I think ultimately not even to mention it, at all, and saying, well, the Civil War was about government's rights. I don't know. That seems like a little bit. This kind of seems like a big omission. We could debate whether it's like number 1, 2, or 3, but it probably should make the top 3 list. All right. So now let's move on. But thank you for your comment. Whatever, it's clever. Okay. Now let's go on to CNN. So we've got from Wall Street Journal. Now we're going to CNN. Ukraine's hopes for victory fade in the face of waning Western support and Putin's relentless war machine. A year ago, a resolute President Vladimir Zelensky traveled direct from the battlefield of Bakhmut to address the U.S. Congress and met with President Joe Biden. He was feted as a hero. Ukraine's determination to resist Russian aggression met with strong bipartisan backing in Washington. 1 year on, the outlook looks much grimmer. A long-anticipated Ukrainian offensive in the south has made scant progress. Russia appears to have weathered international sanctions for now and has converted its economy into a war machine. The Russian way of war, absorbing hideous losses of men and materiel, but throwing yet more into the fight, has blunted the Ukrainian military's tactical and technological edge, as its top general admitted in a candid essay last month. The mood in Moscow seems grimly determined. The goals of the special military operation will be achieved, and the fighting will continue until they are. As long as the front line becomes ever more calcified, the Kremlin senses greater skepticism among Kiev's backers that Ukraine can recover the 17% of its territory still occupied by Russian forces. So that is, I got to agree with that. It seemed like there was much more concentrated support for Ukraine a year ago, and now I think people are like, we're hoping to see more progress. So that's, it's interesting, the whole Ukraine and Israel thing. It's like, personally, I mean, my just opinion is that I feel more justified in arming Ukraine because they have another country that's in their country and they're trying to kick them out. And I think that Israel has made it very clear that they are not okay with what happened on October 7th, and there's 20,000 dead Gazans to prove it. And so that's sufficient to kind of respond. But yeah, the CNN story is that people are kind of losing steam on Ukraine. So next, we're going to talk about Steve Jones says, "Young nerd, what's good, youngin? What's good?"
Everything. I'm kind of happy.
Do you regret coming onto this live stream?
No.
You sure?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So we're going to do a thank you to the people who support this content, which are our YouTube channel members. By the way, just saying, like, Super Chat, I believe, is working. We got the gong, we got the cowbell, we're like ready to go. Anyway, but let's thank our channel members. And then we're going to go into some bonus content, which is a little bit of an update on RFK Jr. Okay, so our biggest supporter is our senior vice president, who goes by the name of Soldier One.
Soldier One.
Thank you, Soldier One. Appreciate it, buddy.
44 months.
Bam. Then our vice presidents, Kristen Slevin and Bike. They've been around forever. 47 months for Kristen. Damn. She might be one of our oldest members.
Yeah.
Then you got our
47.
hardcore.
Gene,
David, DK, Jagalego, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Mickey, Yoda, and Nkiyu. And then our entry level, which is only $1.99 a month, cancel anytime, less than a freaking shot of espresso.
47 months.
For nerd data, and just to support awareness of knowledge, from across the political spectrum. Not that we're begging. Are we begging? We're kind of begging right now. Okay, so verified nerds are Lisa, Brandon, Sophia, Doris, Emerald, Ben, Shoni, Dr. William, Karen, It just skipped on me. My, Brittany, Lori, Wanna, Kevin, Hope, T, Jeremy, David, Nicholas, Mike, Zig, Roberto, Jackson, Lantern, Cindy, and Alice. All right. So now we're going to do the bonus content. I'm going to play our outro music for the bonus content. Someone's asking me about RFK Jr. So I'm going to look at a poll that was done by Quinnipiac, which shows if the primary, no, this is the Republican primary, one on the general. Okay. If the election for president were held today and the candidates were Biden, Trump, and RFK Jr., for whom would you vote? On November 1, it was 39 Biden, 36 Trump. Then November 15th, it was 37 Biden, 38 Trump. And then December 20th, it's 38 Biden, 36 Trump, but 22 Kennedy. So that includes the leaners. And then if you introduce Cornel West and Stein, Kennedy goes to 16 from 22, but Biden and Trump are still 38. So bottom line is that RFK is no joke. That if someone is getting 20% of the vote, like God knows, that's going to have an impact. That's like Ross Perot level impact. Whether or not RFK Jr. takes more votes from Biden or Trump is unclear. So I'm not in the camp of, oh my God, RFK is going to give the election to Trump, because I think actually there's a lot of Trump supporters who might be persuaded by RFK Jr. What I can tell you, and I talked about this in a previous live stream today, was that if neither Trump or Biden get 270 electoral votes, keep in mind that Biden only got 300 last time. So it's not like he got 330 or something like that. Right? So there's a world where he may not get to 270, like where Trump gets a lot more, gets some states that he lost last time, and he wins them, like Michigan or Pennsylvania, that kind of thing. And then maybe RFK gets one or two states, and then the whole thing gets thrown to the House of Representatives, who decides. And this is where I don't agree with how the Constitution is written, but it's not an opinion piece, right? Like, Constitution is written as it is, and if you don't like it, you amend it. Well, what the Constitution says is that if no one gets 270 electoral votes in November of 2024, the House of Representatives decides, and every state has one vote. So California has one vote, Delaware has one vote, all of Florida has one vote, but Vermont has one vote. And if you look at the number of states that Trump won in 2016, he won about 31 states, because he won a lot of those little states, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, And so if RFK Jr. deprives or results in Biden not getting to 270, and if Trump also doesn't get to 270, then basically it goes to the House. The House will almost guaranteed more than 26 states will go to Trump, because they're not going to give it to RFK Jr. because that would require the congressional representatives to vote for someone that wasn't in their party, which would be political suicide. So my TLDR on RFK Jr. is he's getting legit traction. Despite the media not really talking about him, the fact that in national polls, 22% of people say like, oh yeah, I would support him over Biden and Trump, tells you that you got to take RFK Jr. seriously. What I take away from that is, as basically a never Trumper, my objective is we need to get the strongest candidate we can nominated by the Democratic Party, and that is not Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden. I mean, well, actually, you're not old enough to vote, but what's your take on Joe Biden?
Well, I think that everything he's trying to do is always good, and he's always, I mean, like every president should, he's trying to do as much as he can to help the country. But right now, I think if I had the choice, I would pick Barack Obama because he's probably good.
Yeah, but he can't because he already had 2 terms. Like
We should change that rule.
They're not gonna get Obama. So maybe Dean Phillips. Have you considered him?
I haven't.
Okay, well, I'm gonna be
I like
volunteering
that.
for him.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing some phone banking for him
Hmm.
on Saturday.
I can join you.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, right
Join
on.
you.
Right on. Nerdlings for Phillips. So basically, Phillips is like a younger version of Joe Biden, who has a little more energy, a little faster on his feet, also is a former CEO, and is likes to kind of solve things in a bipartisan way. I mean, he's not like super conservative or super liberal. So I like that. I think,
The Ford Party.
yeah, he's not running. He's running for the Democratic Party, but a lot of people in the Forward Party are keen on him, including Andrew Yang. So there you go. Oh, Jeremy, another member in the house. Hey, Jeremy. All right. So with that, we're gonna say goodbye, nerds. It's been great catching up with you all. I hope you enjoyed Nerd Nightly News. And remember, when I make these promises on Twitter, I'm like, hey, if I get 15 likes, I'm gonna do it. Like, promises made, promises kept, even though I really am overdue for some NyQuil and some bedtime. And it's getting late for you too, man. All right, with that, we're going to say goodbye, nerds.
Bye, nerds.